Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this Monday meetup. My name is Robin, and I'm Executive Director of SAOT. The provincial budget announcements have had a deep impact on OT services, particularly for OTs working within the school system. We have heard from many of you and wanted to extend this opportunity during tonight's call to hear more from you about the impacts and discuss ways that SAOT might be able to assist in advocating for occupational therapy services for children and youth. In order to successfully moderate this meetup, we have muted all audio. During the open forum portion of our agenda, you are able to unmute your own line. You are also encouraged to use the chat box at the right of the screen to post your comments and questions. Please indicate if your question is directed to a specific person on the call. Please take a few minutes to review the ground rules for this Monday meetup. We have just about 30 members calling in tonight. The call will be moderated by Robin Scott, President of SAOT, and Lauren, our Treasurer. I would now like to ask Robin Scott to introduce our guest.
Hi, everyone, and thank you very much for joining in on this call. So tonight we have Marianne Baird, the registrar with ACOT, who will be joining us. So welcome back, Marianne. We really appreciate you having so much time available to do this as well. So if there's any updates from ACOT that you'd like to share tonight, we'll get started with that, and then we'll open it up to the open forum.
Okay, thanks for welcoming me back, and happy to be here with you. Just one item I wanted to check with people on the call. The government has asked ACOT and all health professions colleges how well people in private practice are able to access personal protective equipment, or PPE, if they're able to source what they're needing to open up again. So I just wanted to send that question out there for whoever on the call is in private practice.
Thank you. So I invite anyone who might have comments or feedback to Marianne's question to unmute their line or to use the chat box to provide a little bit of commentary. And Lauren and I, as Robin mentioned, will be moderating and just checking in to see who's putting what into the chat box so that we're making sure everyone's questions, concerns, or updates are addressed. So to start off, does anybody have any things that they'd like to bring up right from the get-go? Robin's just directed one question. What impacts have you experienced with the budget cuts currently? For those that might be new to this particular online call, if you choose to unmute yourself, the unmuting button is at the top of your screen if you're on your computer. So Camille, I see that you've written, to be honest, I really haven't tried to source out PPE to date. We are primarily school-based, so we know that we won't be face-to-face with clients for some time. Kristen Ward's mentioned that she's purchased PPE from SAOT or contacted her local AHS community services for direction or one of the local pharmacies in her area. Okay. Jennifer, would you mind just speaking a little bit more to your point? WRT budget cuts, loss of many staff, and some FTEs for OTs?
Oh, hello.
Perfect. Hi.
You can hear me?
I can hear you.
Hello? Oh, perfect. Hi, I was on a call earlier today and my audio wasn't working. So I work in a very small school division, and in anticipation of budget cuts last March, they did reduce a lot of staff. And then again, going forward into next year, there are 2 OTs left with our division, and we have both accepted some reduction in our FTE for the upcoming year. And that's just for OTs. SLPs have also experienced some loss as well. So that's where we're at. And also how our program looks will be very different going forward. So I'm just curious to know if that's sort of similar across the board in larger school divisions as well, or how everybody's faring.
Jen, it's Rosanna here.
Hi, Rosanna.
How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Good. I was actually
Nice to hear your voice.
Yes, same here. I wanted to just maybe ask another question as to when you do accept kind of that reduce in FTE, what does that mean for your team and kind of the school services that you're providing?
Well, we were only 2 full-time OTs the last couple of years, and it wasn't a significant reduction. Our collective FTE was cut to 1.6, so we decided to share that. And how things are going to look next year, it's actually quite a bit up in the air. We primarily serviced pre-K and kindergarten programs for little ones that were PUF funded. But going forward with the loss of RCSD, it looks like we will be serving those little ones that are PUF funded, as well as children in kindergarten through to grade 12.
Thanks for that, Jen. Yeah, I'm just part of the Professional Affairs Committee. We're just gathering more information so that we can better understand what we're up against and how that impacts kind of, the services in the community. So thanks.
Right. No problem.
I see in the chat box, Helen's mentioned on a different topic, as far as budget cuts go, she has lost about half of her work for the next school year and is a private pediatric OT, and has noticed that many others have also been impacted. It looks like across the board, we're seeing a lot of changes to PUF. So Jessica's also mentioned we're facing significant staffing cuts for the next school year. Our service delivery model will be changing dramatically as well, although they're still not solidified exactly what that will look like. How are folks coping with the idea that the plans still are up in the air at this point for the future, but what those changes to practice will look like? Helen, you raise a good point. With PUF qualifications, there's been some shifts and changes. The OT does not appear to be required for PUF qualification anymore, which is definitely absolutely quite significant and really impacts the services that these kiddos are going to be providing and their families. Just trying to keep up with the chat. So Kristen, I noticed AHS provides the services for PUF students, and I'm expecting that it may continue as PUF programming will be different. Kristen is a private contractor, so she's not really sure at this point what the job will look like. And she also mentioned that she's heard that AHS will no longer provide assessments for PUF, but she's not sure if that's true. Is there anyone on the call that might have heard differently or heard similar, or might have some more knowledge about that?
Looks like Rebecca has also mentioned that the Edmonton Public Schools have cut the number of sites providing the PUF funding as well. And not sure how many of those OTs will be servicing those sites with that change.
This is Rosanna here, and just kind of answering the question about whether AHS will no longer provide assessments for PUF. What I know from, and this is very vague, from our executive leadership team is that everything is under negotiations right now, so nothing is set. And I think that they're just trying their best to kind of figure out what type of services they're going to provide. So I don't know whether if that is a true comment. But stay tuned.
Mm-hmm. So Robin's asked a couple questions about where would any advocacy efforts best be directed in your school division? And the second question is, any ideas on how we can have an impact during the pandemic? I know we've brought up in the past a question about who is currently listening right now, as people's attention is pulled in many different areas at this point. Mm-hmm. Rebecca, your comment about if we're not considered for qualification criteria, children with with motor delays may fall through the cracks. And Helen, you've raised a point of the issue of who qualifies kids for PUF. Examples which organization has been an ongoing issue. I already see differences in my sites which can cause confusion before these cuts. And Kristen's written, I think not knowing actual budgets and the date of return to school buildings. This place is in a holding pattern.
It's Rosanna here, and I'm hearing there's a lot of definitely impacts for the OT, and I'm just kind of wondering back to Robin's question is, how can we best advocate for the OT profession at this time? And are there more concrete things that we can do to kind of send a message that OT is a very, very important service for these children? Yeah, just trying to really gather some information and try to problem solve right here as to what can we do?
Helen's mentioned SLP Canada has already documented a letter to Alberta Education.
Yeah, I think Helen has written an email and told me about that too. So that sounds great. That SLP has probably gotten a head start in that, and maybe we can, consider jumping on board on some of this work as well.
Kristen, your comment about AOTA has good handouts that give information on school-based services that we could look at. And Camille's commented that advocacy efforts need to be focused higher up than just the school divisions. Their hands seem to be tied for the most part at this time.
For sure, agreed. I think Camille and Kristen was saying, yeah, that we need to bring our voice to the government to let them know our role in the school system. And yeah, those are definitely possibilities. Let's bring our voice to government as a professional group. That being said, I'm just going to put a plug out there. The Professional Affairs Committee, we did, Robin Tulaski recently sent out an email asking if there are any members that are, maybe interested in joining a, pediatric OT task force for us to kind of unite efforts to kind of, bring a voice to the government and or other projects that we can to best advocate for the OTs. And so for those who are interested, feel free to email me directly and we can coordinate something. We've got a few volunteers already, but we would be happy to, gather more bodies into this working group.
Kristen, I'd love to be able to have us sit down with Kenny and have a conversation about what's going on, a social distance beverage. But you're right. I think that these conversations do need to be passed up further so that people understand the impacts of having these cuts and what that looks like for the children and for their families.
Helen raises a good point about maybe connecting. Is that what you mean, Helen, with SLP around what they've kind of done already?
I think that's a good idea. We should look at some of the resources that SLP and or AOTA has created already and kind of maybe modify it as needed. There's no need to reinvent the wheel if there's already significant work being done. And also be more of a united voice between SLP and OT together.
Marianne's raised a good question about, was anyone else on the call for the CAOT session on autism OT services? They had an interesting framework for advocacy that might be adapted in this circumstance. And Helen, Robin's unmuted your line, so if you'd like to share, go for it.
Now I forgot what I was going to say. I'm just playing around, but I think these are all great ideas. And it would be really nice if we could get, everyone's busy and stressed, but while we have the energy and maybe the drive and the passion, if we could get moving on this sooner than later. I always feel that pediatric OTs are just too nice and kind, having worked across Canada. And I feel that we're often not in the position to really sell all the great things we can do, as all other OTs too, not to downplay what they do. But this is a chance for us to lend our voice to help the kids and families.
Yeah. Jessica's added that she had a discussion with her MLA about these cuts and it was quite discouraging. She's continued to advocate by writing to the minister and the education critic, but there is power in numbers. And Rebecca's commented that she also wrote letters but didn't get a response.
Some of that work can definitely, be part of the working group so that SAOT can, present to more higher up government and advocate in that direction. But these are really good ideas.
Yeah. And I wonder if it might be worthwhile creating a template for that advocacy that pediatric OTs, private practice pediatric OTs, student health OTs can then forward on to their MLA so that they are being inundated with the message that we are hearing that we have concerns about what services are being cut and what services will no longer be provided.
Yeah, I was totally feeling the same way, Robin. Great. Yeah, good idea.
You're right, Kristen. We totally need more OTs in public relations and online presence. Just a couple comments from Kristen. Commercials, as lame as it sounds, do work. They're eye-catching for both your eyes and your ears. Robin's commented, social media campaigns are cost efficient, especially if it drives parents to attention in some way. Helen noted that a friend was able to obtain 500 letters for CF funding and with great persistence had a meeting with the health minister. This is a life-saving drug, but voice was heard.
It speaks to strength in numbers, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And I think you're right, Camille, with everything going on with COVID and changes to school, parents trying to cope with work, childcare, etc. A lot of the attention of what these future cuts for schools and services is being swept under the rug. So Robin and Rosanna, I'm wondering if that's something that we can get working on, as Helen mentioned, sooner rather than later, creating a bit of a template that we could then maybe share with the SAOT community.
Yeah.
And if there's,
sorry.
I was going to say, if there's, as you mentioned, Rosanna, if there's people on the line that are interested and have their 2 cents that they'd like to share, I encourage you to connect with us so that we can pass those along in that letter.
Well, I guess this is a good problem-solving moment. Is the next PAC meeting is on May the 30th, and we have scheduled that meeting. It's a Saturday from 10 to 12, and I don't really know exactly what the agenda will be because it will involve a lot of things that was pre-existing, and then there's COVID, and then there's the private practice OTs and pediatric OTs. But that being said, I'm wondering whether if, some of the pediatric working group would be able to meet for us to kind of finalize a letter to that for us to maybe share with the rest of our OT colleagues. Do you think that timeline is that too far away, or I'm just kind of being cognizant that all of our working group members are all volunteers as well. So. What do you all think? I am not a pediatric OT. I am not an expert, so I think all of your help is definitely needed with your feedback and insight.
I just did a really quick Google search, and it does look like CAOT has some template letters on their website. I didn't actually open them to see if they were exactly what kind of people we're talking about, but there are some MLA suggestions, and it looks like it's a bit PEDS focused.
Thanks, Lauren.
I'm asking the group here, do you think that, creating a letter template, would we be able to kind of create it in, a week's time? For example, launch next week, based on some of the templates that have been created already from maybe CAOT and or SLP?
I think if we can, if there's what the SLPs have done, that would be helpful. I do think it's something that could be done within a week, week and a half, so that we can share it. Jennifer had a question about, is the purpose of the template to create a letter for parents to use to advocate, or us ourselves as occupational therapists?
I'm wondering whether if, and I'm just thinking out loud, that this template would be for both parents and OTs, anybody who actually is supportive of the OT profession.
Yeah.
Am I wrong?
No,
it could be a teacher. And Rebecca wrote that she likes the idea of an online campaign that would be easy for parents to use and also OTs alike. Robin mentioned that SAOT has an infographic already, which is great with regards to the role of OT and children and youth. Yes, that can be attached. And Helen wrote, would it be helpful for those of us who would like to be on the committee to meet via Zoom or something before the scheduled meeting date of the PAC committee? Yeah, for sure. I think really anything is possible at this moment. So Robin wrote, social media campaign could be developed this summer. That could definitely be a task force kind of goal and action plan. I'm trying to write these ideas as we're coming along here. Sorry, Robin, Lauren, I took over your job.
No, it's all good, Rosanna. It's great to have
Rosanna,
you.
You can have it, buddy.
Okay, Kristen. So the letter concept is good. That'd be awesome if there was a commercial of the infographic. Yes. Boom. I have to add that on. True.
So Rebecca's commented she hasn't heard anything about the media, in the media, about the loss of OT as a result of government cuts. And Marianne has commented, having worked in government, I remember they looked at citizen, in this case parents, input with more weight than professionals who are seen as having a personal interest in promoting their own services. So perhaps a combination of both for volume would be effective, but the more parents you can get to write in, the better.
That's a great idea, Marianne.
I think that's true too when we were seeing the education cuts as well, the amount of parents and teachers that got together and how that captured the media's attention.
And it makes it extra difficult because COVID is basically, masking everything with regards to the budget cuts at this time. So that is definitely another layer of complexity that we're going through right now.
Mm-hmm. Jennifer's asked a good question. I know there's a restriction for teachers when they are dealing with parent complaints. They are limited to say, contact your MLA. Do we OTs have any such restrictions? I'm not sure if that's a question. Marianne, do you have any thoughts on that?
Teachers, I believe, would have similar restrictions about talking about their employer or their employer's budgets as an OT in Alberta Health Services, for example, would have on talking about their employer or their employer's budgets. So, yeah, I think there's something there. But yeah, having said that, I'm not sure if they're limited to saying contact your MLA. I'm not sure whether that's the case or not. I'm not certain. But yeah, the second question in that chat is, do we as OTs have any such restrictions? It's as long as you're not saying you're saying this on behalf of the college, for example, then it's not an issue. Like you have to separate the SAOT mandate from the college mandate, which is public interest, whereas SAOT has the advocacy arm. So as long as you're saying you're representing yourself and or working with SAOT, then there isn't a restriction that way.
Thank you for answering that. And I think your comment in the chat about an angle to play on is the announcement at one point by the Premier that OT services were continuing is valuable, because certainly, sure, they are continuing, but at significant changes and cuts. And the public should be made aware of what that might look like. Robin's put in that there is an online mechanism to write a letter, put in your postal code, and the system matches with your MLA. And then the letter is submitted automatically online from the user, such as the parents. Lauren's commented that HSAA union does that. I think that would be probably the easiest way. And if there was a possibility of sharing that link or that format on social media, we might get that distributed more broadly.
Robin Talaski, my question is, do we have the ability to do that? The resources to do that? Or does anybody have any skills to be able to create such a mechanism to, create letters automatically?
Hi, Rosanna, it's Robin T. Yes, I would say that our web developer would have the skills to be able to put that together. And I'm very well connected with a fellow by the name of Les Hagan, who is the Director of Action on Smoking and Health, and he's done this repeatedly for a number of issues. Most recently would be vaping. But anyway, he knows all the ins and outs of this kind of stuff, and I'm certainly happy to connect with him and then start to connect with our web developer about what might be involved. But I think it would be cost effective, and that's really what we're looking for, because we've also had some financial impact from COVID on SAOT, and so mindful of our budget and just trying to come up with things that we could do that would be really efficient and highly motivating for parents and would help to get the message out quickly and efficiently.
That is excellent news, Robin. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So outside of creating a letter template for OTs, parents, other stakeholders or supporters of OT, are there other areas that people on the chat would like to see SAOT support with, as far as what is coming down the pipes? Not always knowing what that might be. Kristen asked, can SAOT try to blitz media, get on the news, do interviews? People need something more than COVID-19 news. These type of things are free. Just need someone to connect and be the face. Any volunteers to be the face? TikTok OT videos, Rosanna. Absolutely.
I still don't even know what that means, but I hear that's the race nowadays.
Well, there are certainly lots of folks on TikTok from different professions that are using it as a way to get knowledge of those professions out there. To make it specific to Alberta, though, that would need some planning. Robin's mentioned she does have lots of media relations experience. She just needs some OT volunteers. Lauren nominated Kristen.
What kind of volunteers do we need? I guess the question specifically, Robin, is do you need like actors or do you need people that are behind the scenes is maybe what I'm presuming the question might be.
Yeah. And Rebecca's commented, if anyone knew a parent with a child directly impacted and could tell their story on media, that would have an impact.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Story, yeah.
There's certainly lots of folks who there's so much. I don't work in school OT, but I work in inpatient pediatric OT, and the biggest concern for a lot of our families that are coming in is they just don't have the supports, which is why their kids are in hospital now. They've run out of resources in the community. Marianne's made a note that a parent did approach her about concerns regarding the funding cuts. And I think it would be awesome if you could ask her if she'd be interested in getting involved.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Or maybe I'm just thinking for AHS, like, we really shouldn't be asking families for involvement, but maybe private practice OTs if some of your clients are feeling like highly motivated to be involved, that might be also another avenue to consider.
Mm-hmm. Jessica's noted, we have a parent of a child in our organization that's been very vocal online and was planning on presenting at the legislature before COVID restrictions. Jessica, if that parent is open to connecting with SAOT, we'd love to support. Robin Talaski, would it be best to connect folks with you? Yeah, okay.
Robin, I'm thinking, Robin Talaski, I'm thinking you and Guy and Robin should probably meet sooner than later to devise out what we're going to do with some of these amazing ideas. So, yeah, I'm thinking that the meeting May 30th might be a little bit too late, but that we should probably brainstorm before that to bring forward to PAC, the Professional Affairs Committee. Lauren, does that mean that you're involved too?
Oh, you know me. You know me.
Great, I twisted your arm.
I don't do too much, but I'm here.
Helen's mentioned that there have been many stories about parents who feel very concerned that they will lose their extra year of PUF funding. For the most part, PUF is reduced to 2 years from 3, and there's been a lot of NDP opposition platforms. Helen, I agree. I've seen a lot of NDP has been really out there trying to raise those concerns both for education and services within healthcare. they might be a good connecting point too, to make sure that we can get some of those messages out. For any supportive MLA. Rebecca, I think that that would be a great idea, connecting with the education critic for the NDP.
That's a great idea, Rebecca. I'm just kind of thinking that before we meet with the education critic, we should probably have some like formalized letters and or resources to be able to advocate. And that's what we've learned in the past. For example, like the infographics and or a letter that will definitely help propel us and to send a very clear, concise message. So definitely, I think that will probably be maybe in the later stage, but the letters and that material will probably have to go first.
Yeah. So next steps for us then on SAOT side, Rosanna and Robin, to try and organize some of this information that we're trying to get across so that we can share it with the community and get a sense of we're on the right mark, and then figure out next steps from there, setting up hopefully some meetings or social media opportunities.
Yes, I put out my email address again. So for those who are interested in joining the task force working group, feel free to send me an email. So we don't know what the commitment is going to look like. I think we're going to probably, develop it as the working group evolves. But it would be kind of this focus would be on promoting the pediatric OTs. With regards to the budget cuts, and feel free to join us at, kind of ad hoc or email if you want to just even share ideas, because I think we are going to be stronger with numbers and also ideas. Yes, Lauren makes it very, very fun. Without her, we'd be a very boring bunch.
And Rosanna, perhaps when we have a little bit more information about what this might look like as we gather momentum, then we can also share that on like the Alberta Pediatric OT interest group blog to, again, kind of get the information out there for occupational therapists in the community that might also have some ideas to contribute or interested in the blog.
Totally. Now that I'm thinking about it, maybe we should maybe we should even provide regular updates on SAOT website as to what we're doing, and maybe kind of for people to just follow to see what's going on, to even highlight the work that we're doing. But at the very least, I would anticipate that the working group would be meeting once a month for about an hour, just to basically kind of build on these ideas and make concrete action plans based on them. So,
Marianne's commented an idea from the COT session was to provide a framework of policy alternatives that are solutions. For example, outlining how the pooled funding could be optimally allocated between the rehab disciplines and address the prior issue of multiple funding streams instead of one. I wonder with that then if there are folks that are involved in the funding level that we need to connect with to brainstorm some of that, or people who are familiar and used to figuring out the funding based side of things. Or anybody that's got policy analysis background or knowledge. Robin, I agree. I think that the PAC does need to meet to decide next steps. Thanks, Marianne.
Completely get it, Marianne, but really appreciate these ideas.
Mm-hmm. Helen, you're right. The funding's changed moving forward, and I'm not sure if anyone has a grasp on this yet. Sure would be nice to have insider knowledge. Becca's question is, will AHS still have therapists working in schools? Kristen's commented, from her experience, they are looking at recreating and changing services to offer more effective and efficient service delivery in the school. They're beginning to create a new look to services, a direct correlation to budget cut, forcing us to make the change. Marianne's added, she suspects the NDP critic would be open to hearing about a funding proposal that breaks down the silos between FSCD, RCSD, PUF, etc. That's a good point. We've got lots of work ahead of us. Rosanna?
I know these are exciting times, but also overwhelming times for sure. Just so everybody knows that the PAC group is basically 6 volunteers, including myself. And so again, I advocate for those who are interested in just even maybe being a part of it would be much appreciated. So yeah, feel free to connect again.
Kristen's made another note. Mental health programming in the schools is being targeted and hit as well. This is another avenue for us to highlight the role of OT and mental health in schools. I can think of a few OTs that might be interested in speaking up on this, Kristen. So try and pull some more people in to help us out with PAC, Rosanna.
Sounds great.
Hello there. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Oh, hi. I've been trying to talk, and I just switched onto the internet, and I just wanted to share that. So my name's Angela. I'm working in the role of a mental health therapist, and we actually just had a town hall meeting with the education critic Sarah Hoffman. I had mentioned this in an email to you guys a while back, but there was about 67 of us around the province through RCSD. So there was OTs, SLPs, and mental health therapists and part of this. So I just sent the email on to Robin with the Sarah Hoffman had given the links to the talks to share on social media. So there's about 5 different people that they copied to share the links on the information.
Thank you, Angela. That's awesome.
Yes.
And Camille has mentioned she knows an RCSD OT who still doesn't even know what's happening to her job. She's not sure she'll be pushed to outpatient ped services at the health unit for next year. Or what? Mm-hmm.
This is Angela talking again. I've also heard that as far as like the funding for mental health for the schools, that for the public health their public school system, they have decided not to partner up with EHS to hire mental health therapists. But the Catholic school has, they're in talks right now to open up some positions and partner with EHS. So there could be some positions still available, but there's still going to be a large amount of us that are going to get laid off. And again, we are not told, and we keep getting told, oh, in 1 more month or 1 more month. So it sounds like it'll be the end of May, beginning of June when we find out for next school year.
And Kristen's noted that in her area there will be no RCSD services at this time for the fall. A lot of uncertainty, I imagine, for many therapists, especially for those who are in the rural areas, waiting to get more of this information. Helen, I'm curious if anybody else on the line has an answer if RCSD was completely cut. I know in my area of practice, people still bring RCSD up, so I'm not clear, to be honest. It looks different in each zone.
Just speaking for Edmonton zone right now, our CSD is still providing some services. Basically, we're just wrapping up than anything, but most of our RCSD staff have been reassigned for COVID work. So, and we don't know how, of course, how long that will last for, but yeah. I'm not sure, is that in Calgary as well, Robin, or?
That's my understanding. I know we've tried connecting to RCSD a few times now for folks that are on our caseloads, but like it's a little bit different for me because I'm not a case manager, so I don't have as many direct conversations with what that's looking like. For the next school year, yeah, okay. That makes more sense.
So what I've heard is that the RCSD funding for the Edmonton zone, and well, actually all of Alberta, is not going to exist for September, and that the budget has been allocated to the schools to decide what they do with it. So it's no longer the collaboration of the ministries anymore.
You're right, Rebecca. If school boards and RCSD are both letting go of OTs, that's a lot of OT positions that will be no longer there. All the more reason to get out there and try and communicate to the government how important our role is. So we are coming to wrapping up the hour. So as Rosanna mentioned, I encourage anyone who has thoughts, connections, or resources that they'd like to pass along, do connect with our Professional Affairs Committee. Sorry, practice of, now I keep getting PACs mixed up between ACOT and SAOT, sorry. Do connect with Rosanna if you've got additional information. And we will start the ball rolling to see where we go from here.
We are really, really fun, everybody. You can hear it in my voice. So come join us. We'll have a ball.
They're a creative bunch who need more creative people, and OTs are always super good people to hang out with.
Yes.
connect and collaborate with.
Pre-COVID times, we would meet up for coffee and actually have meetings. And so maybe we'll have a glass of wine virtually or something.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Rebecca. And yeah, just for you to know, with regards to volunteers for the pediatric task force, we have 3 volunteers right now. So I definitely think that based on what some of these great ideas have come out from this discussion, we would benefit from more volunteers. So thank you. I'll end my plug.
Robin Talaski, are there any final notes that you'd like to comment on?
Hi there. No, this has been great. It's been informative and also inspiring. It's really good to hear from people and share ideas. And I feel much better about a vision moving forward on this after tonight.
Thank you. Marianne, thank you again for participating in the call. Was there anything else you'd like to add before we wrap up?
Yeah, I've just been pondering the question around if it's okay for people to advocate around the funding cuts, and it reminds me of a professional discipline case that it was a nurse or maybe an LPN type of nurse had out of Saskatchewan who was critical of the care received in a nursing home, and it went to a professional conduct committee. So when advocating, it's best to stay on the advocacy side, meaning explaining the wonderful things that OTs do, and then leave it to the parents to talk about if they feel they're not receiving adequate services. Because that's where you can get into that gray area of unprofessional conduct in terms of complaining about inadequate services.
Absolutely. I think that's really important for us to have in the back of our mind as we're going forward with everything.
Yeah, absolutely. And if there's ever a question about that, I'm happy to talk to whoever has the question about it.
Thank you. That's much appreciated.
Marianne, I have a question with regards to that. Would we be crossing the line if we maybe just kind of directed maybe parents just to visit the SAOT website for information?
That's not crossing the line, no.
Okay.
And parents can advocate in any way they choose. Yeah, but as professionals, we have to be mindful to make sure our conduct is professional.
Absolutely, yeah. Because I'm thinking that if we kind of updated our website to actually have these resources available, then we could have a common voice and just saying, visit this one particular site and to get a letter or something, but not being very mindful as to how to word it, and nothing more but to direct them to a website, for example.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, everyone. So thanks again for participating in our call. We will be having another meeting, a couple more meetings coming up for the rest of the month of May and going into June. So if there's any topics on the SAOT website, they have them all listed. I encourage you to check them out and participate as you can. And thank you all for your comments and your feedback. And hopefully we'll be talking with you again soon. Have a wonderful evening, everyone.
Thanks, Robin. Thanks, everybody. Take care.